Hi everybody. Today we're going to take a look at an oldie but a goodie. The KangerTech ProTank 2, right here on My Vaping Place. Hey everybody, Joe here. Nice of you to join me today. Thanks for coming. Okay, what we're going to be taking a look at today is this, the Kanger ProTank 2. Okay, before you start yelling and screaming about why is he doing this old piece of technology, it's for the simple reason that this old piece of technology is still a quite viable tank, and there are a lot of people out there today not only who have this tank but might want to use this tank because this tank is really inexpensive. It's still readily available. Kanger cranked out millions of these things, I think, and this piece of Q3, Q4 2014, Q1 2015 technology is still probably one of the best tanks out there on the market for brand new vapors or for people who have been vaping for maybe a month or two and want themselves a really good open system tank that will give them great flavor, relatively easy to deal with and maintain, and yes, you can do rebuilds on the coil and save yourself a whole hell of a lot of money. Okay, so without any further ado, let's dive down to the build deck, take a look at this thing. I'm going to show you the unboxing, show you how it's supposed to come out of the box, give you a few little tips on it, show you a couple of accessories that I have for this tank, and then we're going to come back up here and I'm going to give you some tips and stuff like that that I really found to work great for this thing. Okay, so without further ado, let's take a look down at the build deck and we'll be right back with you. Okay, here we are down on the build deck with the Kanger ProTank 2 Clearomizer. Now this is a relatively old tank as tanks go these days. This came out, I believe, either at the end of 2014 or at the beginning of 2015, somewhere in that range. I'm not exactly sure. But this tank was on the market and was pretty much the cat's meow when I turned around and when I first started vaping. It was shortly after I started using this, superseded by the Aero tanks by Kanger, which had quite a few more options available to it and a few different other types of coil heads for it. They started going with a lot of other things. So this tank here, I don't know if you can still find it out there anymore, but they are still a lot of them out there. They made hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of these tanks, and you can still get coils for this thing. And if you can't find coils out there anymore that are relatively cheap, and you can probably find them on Fast Tech, but you can rebuild these coils almost indefinitely. I'll show you some of that in another video because to do a build on one of them is going to take a little bit longer than what this is going to be when everything is all said and done. So let's take a look and see what we got. You have the company's website there. You have the genuine authenticity code here, which is a scratch and check, the usual CE, ROHS, please recycle, etc., etc. On the back here, you have a quick start guide, shows you all of the different components, the basic components of the unit. It doesn't go into breaking it down. Fill the tank before use, or blah, 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 blah. You can read it yourself. You can pause this video if you want and read it all for yourself and see exactly what's going on with this. Okay? You can use, this goes basically about 2.5 to 3 milliliters of e-juice into the tank. So, sorry, you're going to have to excuse me. I got a head cold that's working on me that's driving me absolutely nuts. Okay, This is the little user manual that comes in here. Yes, I know it says mini on here, but it actually covers the regular size ProTank, which is got a 510 connector, and the mini. This is what the mini looks like. This is designed for strictly ego threaded mods that are out there, such as the Ego Twist, etc., ad nauseum. This shows you how you go about filling it, how you go about changing the heads in here, etc. Now, this will take anywhere from a 1.2 to a 2.1 ohm coil in here. It will work at a voltage range of between 3.1 and 4.5 volts. And wattage anywhere from 5 to 8 watts is the recommended wattage for this. I have taken it up as high as 10 watts on this thing. You can bring it up a little bit higher, but anything higher than about 9.5 to 10 watts, you're really starting to push it, especially if you're using a high VG juice in this. This tank here, I would not suggest using any higher a VG concentration than maybe 60 to 65% VG, and the rest of it made up, of course, of PG. Okay, what I have in this tank, in this box here, is you have 2 spare coils. These are 1.8 ohm coils. They are the stock coils. Now, these coils, if you have an issue with them, these things can be rebuilt. They can be rebuilt very easily. They use a silica wick in here, and this is a brandy new stock coil. As you can see on there, if it'll focus in, yeah, there you go, 1.8 ohms. Okay, they have these here where they can go up as high as, like I said, 2.1 ohms. So you have 2 of them here. Excuse me. You have the tank here, and this is the beauty ring. This is what you would use if you have a mod that uses an ego cone thread, kind of sort of like this. You would put this on here, screw this on into place like so, and it's also called a beauty ring. And then you would take your tank here with the 510 connector, screw it into the 510 portion there, and there you have it. That's what it would look like. Okay, this works very well on a straight 510 connected unit. I'm just going to put this over here for a minute, and here we go. Now, with this tank here in its present configuration gets all of its airflow here from the base of the 510 connector. I don't know if you can see it too well, but right here where the tip of my pen is, there is a little tiny hole. Now you're not going to see it. Let's see. Let's see if that'll pick it up now. There you go. See right there? That little hole right there, that is where the airflow comes in. The airflow comes in from the outside, goes through that hole, comes in around this, comes through this cut here, goes up through that hole there and into the tank and goes over the coils. Okay? So anytime you use this tank in its present configuration, the way you see it right now, you have to make sure that you have the airflow slots, like on this little K-Box Mini here, these little slots right here, to bring the air in underneath of the tank through these little grooves here, okay, into the 510 connector and then in as I showed you before. So anytime you use this tank the way it is right now, make sure you have those slots on your mod. If not, it's not going to work on you. Okay? There are some options, and I will tell you this right now, there are some options that you can purchase afterwards for use with this tank. And I'm going to show you some in a couple of minutes as soon as I give you the breakdown on this so you can see what those options are. And they're actually really good options. So, starting at the top, we have the standard 510 mouthpiece. This is really nice. I love this little mouthpiece. I use one just like this on my K-Funds, and that plugs in here. This has got a single massive O-ring on here. It works on just about everything. Top assembly here, chimney looking straight down there into the coil head. The coil that I have in here is a brandy new coil. I have never used this before, so you're going to see it for the first time. So you disassemble this by turning this base here like so. That reveals the coil. The coil just screws into this base here. As you can see, nice big hole there. This is your center pin, your center 510 connector pin. As you can see, it just pokes through there like saying peekaboo. Okay? As I said before, these use silica wick. So this thing here, you can get dry hits with this in its stock configuration if you use, like I said before, if you use too high a VG juice, or if you pump the wattage up too high, you definitely will get dry hits if you try to do both high VG and too high a wattage. So just bear that. That's something to bear in mind. Okay, like so. Then you would pour your juice in here. If you're going to be filling this, you pour your juice in here. This screws in, goes right in there like so. Screws into place. The threads on this thing are buttery smooth. The chroming on this is wonderful. It's a little bit of a fingerprint magnet, but I think it is just so damn pretty. And the knurling that they have here on the coil base is absolutely phenomenal. You can even with e-juice saturated hands, you can still turn around and take this apart. Now, to this part, this tank, as I said before, is completely disassemblable. You can just take this apart and break it down and throw it into a small little dish with a little bit of soapy warm water, and it will clean up absolutely fantastic. This is your top assembly. Silicone gasket here to seal the glass. This is Pyrex glass, so it will not be affected by any of those notorious little tank cracker juices that are out there, which are getting fewer and fewer, farther and farther between. But this tank here is beautiful, and they make these things in various colors. I'll show you in a minute or two what I'm talking about that also. This is your base. This is where the coil head screws in, and the threaded top piece screws right in here. Okay? Also, silicone ring. Quite self-explanatory. Bottom seal for the glass tank. Okay? Very simple. Now, as I said, this tank is an extremely simple tank to use. You really can turn around and do a lot of things with this. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of things. Like I just said, these tank glasses, well, if you drop it, it's going to break. So they sell these replacement tank glasses. But they also sell them in colors. This is a purple one. I have another one just like it in blue. I love this purple. When this purple is on here, it is absolutely gorgeous. Okay? You can see what I mean. Don't that look pretty? It's like an amethyst purple. Okay? So, like I said, you can get different colored glasses to put on here. You don't have to stick with the purely clear glass. Now, Kanger came out with a couple of options. When they started coming out with the Aero Tank, they came out with an option that would take basically your ProTank 2 here and turn it into an Aero Tank. Well, this is it. this is an airflow control valve. Now, as I showed you before, the ProTank gets its air from that little hole that's right there in the base of the tank. This here, if I can get it out of here, allows you to control how much air you take in, from fully wide open to, doesn't want to turn, to fully closed. There's a couple of different holes here. There's one here. I don't know if you can see it very clearly. There's one hole there. There's another hole right there. There's basically 4 little holes here on this base that you would spin this knurled piece here around until it gets to the fully up position where that air is completely shut off. You can then spin this around to open up some or more of these holes to allow you to get varying amounts of air. Basically turning this into a variation of the aero tank. Now, what you would do is, instead of using this base here, you would just take your coil out and screw it into this head. Now, did you see that, what happened there? When you screw this head in, it pushes this little center pin here, this 510 connector pin here, pushes it out. Now watch. If I can get this to screw in here properly. There we go. See it coming out? Peekaboo. This allows this to work on those kinds of tanks where you have to have a slightly protruding 510 pin. Because when you looked at this before, if you saw it before, when this connector is in here, this is absolutely flush. You could not, in any good conscience, use this on something like a mech mod or something that doesn't have a non-adjustable 510 pin on it. A mod that's got a adjustable 510 pin. This you could. Okay? So this not only gives you the option of being able to adjust your airflow, but also gives you a wider range of mods that you can use it on. This is really a fantastic little unit. Now, this is the version 1 of the variable airflow. A few months later, they came out with this one. Kind of looks the same. As you can see, it can be used on the ProTank 2, the ProTank 3, it can be used on the Aero Tank. This is based on a design from the Aero Tank. Now, this does not have click stops. It is completely variable. You see all those little holes that are in there? You can turn this to close off any one of those 5 little holes. You can close it side where you have only 1 hole open, or you can have all 5 holes open. And there's only one on there. This is the original. This is one of the original little Cyclopses. Just like the other one, you screw this in and watch that 510 pin there, that 510 connector, as I screw it in. See it pop out there? This doesn't pop out quite as far as the version 1 does, but it does pop out nevertheless, and that's where your airflow comes in. So when you have this on here, you can basically close off as much or as little as you want. Boy, this thing's really stiff. Wow. Let's put it on this little SVD here. You can close this off with as much or as little airflow as you want. See? There it goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or you can close it off totally completely. Say it like so. Totally open, totally closed, anywhere in between. There's no click stops on this, so you don't have to, you're not stuck with one particular setting. So if you wanted, we'll say like 2.5 air holes open, you could do that. 3.5, 4.5, whatever you wanted to do. Now, because you're getting your airflow here, this now allows this tank to be used with a wider variety of mods. Okay? So you could use this tank on mods that have bottom airflow capability or those that don't. So you now have a whole heck of a lot more that you can do. And because this is exactly totally compatible with everything that this tank had beforehand, there you go. Makes it a little bit taller, makes it a lot taller, but it gives you a lot more for that extra little space. So these are available. I think they're about $5 a piece. The glass tanks are, I think, like $2.50, $3 each. The prices are very, very reasonable. Like I said, I don't know who has these out there anymore, or even if they're still available in the wild. I think that they may be, but I'm not sure. You really have to go out and do a Google Foo search to get, to see if you can find anybody who has them. If you know of some older vapors, the guys that have been around for a while, and they have one of these things, or they have a couple of them, and they're not using them anymore, see if you can talk them out of it. Because these little tanks, they're absolutely beautiful. And I'll show you how. This is one of the ways that I've been rocking this tank for a while. Okay? Put the purple on here. Put this on here. Like this. Tighten this up. Like so. There we go. Put that on there. Purdy, don't you think? Okay, well, that's the ProTank 2. Take this back up to FaceTime, and we'll juice this up and have a vape on her and show you how she works. Okay? All right, talk to you in a few. Hey everybody, glad to see you made it back up alive. Okay, all right, let me put that over to one side there. What we're going to do now is we're going to go over this. I'm sitting here, I got the ProTank 2 the way I showed you in the build cam before. Now, this tank, I know some people are going to say that this tank is an older tank and that it really doesn't have any validity in today's market for the new vapor slash beginning intermediate vapor. That's a bunch of, well, as they say on the other side of the pond, bollocks. Okay? This tank is still just as perfectly valid today as it was when it first came out at the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. Just because Kanger came out with newer tanks that are sub-ohm minded and everything else doesn't make a hill of beans. This tank is perfect for the intermediate vapor who doesn't have a lot of money, or who doesn't want to invest a lot of money in something that he or she does not completely, well, I shouldn't say does not, is not completely sure that vaping will work for them. Okay? I know when I first started doing this little thing of ours, the first thing that I did, I wasn't thinking about quitting. I wasn't. I was looking at the cost of my smokes, and I was saying to myself, there's got to be a cheaper way. There's got to be a cheaper way. There's got to be a cheaper way. So when I was presented with vaping, I'm saying to myself, okay, this might actually be a cheaper way for me to get my nicotine, not have to deal with the stigma of being a smoker, and well, who knows? Who knows? Maybe I might even quit. Well, like I said in my first video, I went out, I bought my little Ego battery, and I bought my little iClear 16 clone, disposable clone, tried it, and man, I'm telling you, I loved it. I really loved it. I recognized that there were a lot of limitations on it, and that really had me a little concerned. That really kind of sort of, you know, how when you're smoking, you left the house and you had only 2 or 3 smokes left in your pack. Well, that's the kind of concern I had about whether or not vaping would actually be able to be long-term viable, especially at the cost of juice. Now, the one nice thing that about sub-ohm tanks is that they blow a lot of clouds. When they blow a lot of clouds, they use a lot of juice. So what happens is if you're not doing your own DIY, you're going to wind up spending a lot of money on juice. And not only that, but sub-ohm tanks are designed for direct lung inhales. Most new vapors are mouth-to-lungers. They're not direct lung inhales. I tell you, I don't know anybody out there who is a direct-to-lung smoker. Especially if they're smoking things like Cools. Oh my God, those things will tear up your chest so fast it'll make your head spin. So when you look at this, you're going to see that a tank like this is totally, absolutely viable, even in today's market. A tank like this with heads in here that you can rebuild, and rebuild them cheaply, no matter where in the world you are, whether you're in sub-Saharan Africa, South America, New York City, LA, Oshkosh, Wisconsin, Yorkshire, England, Dusseldorf, Germany, no matter where in the heck in the world you are, this tank still makes sense. It makes financial sense, it makes smoking sense, it makes new vapor sense. This is the kind of tank that we need to be out there today. Now, Kanger, Innokin, a couple of the other companies out there have started to recognize this. They've recognized that they've got an untapped market just sitting there dying, literally and figuratively, for tanks that are simple, easy to use, not complicated, have the ability to be rebuilt to cut down on the amount of costs, but still at a point where most people, whoopsie, almost dropped it, will be able to who don't want to rebuild can still go out and get coils. This tank is right there. Okay? You can rebuild the coil heads in here, like I said before. The coil heads are relatively inexpensive now, especially since this is pretty much no longer being made as far as I know. But there's still millions of them out there. Still millions of these things floating around out there. If you have the chance to get your hands on one of these tanks, do it. This is, in my personal opinion, this is probably one of the best Clearomizer tanks that have been made, period. Okay, it doesn't turn around, it doesn't chuck clouds that you can show up on NOAA's weather radar and as a new cloud system. This isn't that kind of a tank. This is a tank for the new to the early intermediate vapor who needs something that will keep them going or her going, and will give that new vapor dependable service. Bingo. Right there. That's it. Okay? That's the tank. And you can make it looking pretty too. Hey, you got the best of both worlds. With the use of this AeroTank style airflow control in here, you can most easily and most certainly do it. All right, let me fill this thing up. I know I'm waffling on here, but let me fill this thing up and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about, because this is probably going to turn around and take the most amount of time. Now this is a 50/50 PG VG juice I'm putting in here. Very simple. You just fill the tank up like that, slap this onto the bottom, screw it onto a mod. Now I'm running this at 8.2 watts on an Innokin SVD 2.0, 2.0 ohms, and we're looking at 4.3 volts. Now I'm going to show you what this thing can do mouth to lung. Okay? Mouth to lung. Juice flavor is right there. It's a little bit more muted than what I'm used to in my K-Fun, but it's right there. I'm going to carb this mouth to lung. Actually, excuse me. When you're carbing it, it's going to be direct to lung. So, my apologies. Now, for this technology, that's a fairly respectable cloud, okay? Without carbing it direct to lung. Now, that's a respectable cloud in anybody's book. Unless, of course, you happen to be in competition, in some cloud chasing competition. But, you know, we all don't do that. This is a respectable little tank. This tank will do what it needs to do. Okay? It will give you the air. It gives you the airflow. It gives you the flavor. It gives you cloud production. It's right there. If you can still find this out in the wild, the price on this tank is going to be, like I think I've said before, probably no more than about 15, 20 bucks max. US dollars, of course. And that, even at that, that's a little bit on the expensive side. This probably should run you no more than about somewhere between 5 and 15 bucks. Okay? The coil heads in here should run you between 50 cents and $1 US. Ooh, excuse me. No more than that. No more than that at all. Wire costs you maybe $5 for 100 meters of Canthol A1. I use, when I do the rebuilds, I use 30 AW American wire gauge. Offhand, I don't really remember what that comes out to in metric. You can look that up easily enough on the web. Seriously, that cost me $5. I still have 100 meters on here. Excuse me, 100 feet. Sorry, 100 feet. $5 for 100 feet. Cotton, $2 or $3 for 100 pads, 200 pads, something like that. Come on, it's ridiculously cheap. This will keep you going. This will work on any mod that you want. $35, somewhere between $35 and $55. You can pick up a good 40, 50, 60 watt mod that will turn around, that will give you long duration use. Like, I stick 50. It's not temperature controlled. This is straight wattage. This is a 4400 milliamp hour battery or mod battery in here. This will give me 2 days. 2 days without a charge. On my K-Fun, which I'm vaping at 16 watts. This thing here vapes at 8.5 watts. That'll give you even double the lifespan on that battery. This thing here, it's got about 3 mils of capacity in here. This works. Come onto that. Bada bing. You're ahead of the game. You decide to do some, you're not going to turn around, you're not going to go through juice like a juiceaholic. If you want to do your own DIY, you can do that. I've done some videos on DIY, so you don't have to go crazy about that. It gives you all the basics, goes over all the basic equipment and stuff like that that you need. You got questions, right down there in the comments box. Give me a question. If I have the answer, I'll be more than happy to answer it for you. If I don't, I'm pretty sure I can tell you where to go to get the answer. Seriously, I'm not trying to sell you on this. I'm sold on this little tank. I love this tank. And I think this tank is absolutely bloody phenomenal. With this airflow control on here, it is freaking fantastic. And if you get the chance to try one of these, by all means, do it. Okay? There are other tanks out there that are just as good. They'll maybe even give you more flavor and everything else. But for bang for your buck, this is it. Okay? That's pretty much it. I'm just going to sit here and vape this thing off. So, before I forget, there is a new reviewer in town. His name is Andy. He's over at Cloudbased Vaping. He's from over in Yorkshire. I think, please don't shoot me if I'm wrong, I think it's West Yorkshire, but I'm not sure. I know it's Yorkshire. He's a really nice guy. He's put up his first 3 videos. Yeah, I'm going to tell you, he needs a lot of work. I've already told him about it. He's a good mate of mine. I've turned around, him and I have been talking back and forth for a long time, and he decided that he wanted to go into doing reviews. So stop over there. Give him a chance. Give him a shot. He's got to develop his style just like every reviewer out there has to develop their own style. Show the love. Like. Subscribe to his channel. Give him a break. Give him a chance. Help him out. You got comments, you got questions, you got suggestions, throw them in his comments box. Let him know. He's open to suggestions. He says so right on his video. He said it to me a lot of times. Show the love. Go over and take a look at his channel, okay? Pretty much that's it. This is starting to get a little bit too long, along with the long expose on this and the showing you how to put this thing together. And I'm just sitting here jabbering my jowls, or as they say over there on the other side of the pond, waffling around like a... I don't even know how they would put it, so don't mind me. Guys, take care. Once again, thanks for stopping by. Seriously, if you can get one of these things, get your paws on it and do it, okay? Especially if you're new to vaping, do it. Take care. God bless. May the wind be ever at your back, and may the road rise to meet you. Take care.